Hello, this is Dan Ferrisi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Emerald. So happy to be joined today by Simon LeDuc, who is Product and Technology Manager with Clockaudio North America. We're going to be talking a whole lot about Clockaudio, its industry leadership, its passion for audio excellence, and your passion for audio excellence, Simon, and all the different ways Clockaudio and its solutions can help the integration community. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So let's get right to it. As I said, I mean, you have a lot of expertise, and Clockaudio, of course, is known for the quality of the equipment it designs and manufactures. I want to talk about your own experience, though, in dialogue, in audio quality, and how that plays a role in the passion that you have for audio excellence, and how that audio excellence, of course, as I say, manifests in the quality of the microphones that Clockaudio designs and manufactures.
Well, so I'm from the background originally from the video game industry. So I did a lot of sound design, but I migrated to more of the dialogue recording and post. And also having a recording studio on the side, a lot of the projects, a little bit like a garage with oil changes. Your bread and butter is usually dialogue, right? You want to work on the cool projects of recording an album and stuff like that. But what makes the studio live is usually the dialogue recording. So I did a lot of those in my life. And a lot, also there's a specific challenge when you're dealing with video game that you don't want to sound like you're next to the microphone as well, because it's going to sound unnatural when you got characters walking around in an environment. You can't have that, that proximity effect. So there's some stuff that recording as well, we would do different aspects or change the way we record because the medium is different. So I've done a lot of that in my life.
It sounds like absolutely fascinating work, quite honestly. Although I am not a gamer myself, I have so much respect for the thought process that goes into, as you say, like eliminate the proximity effect. Don't take the gamer out of the experience. Really make it immersive. Make him or her able to immerse themselves in this environment. And the audio and the components thereof really have an effect on that.
And it's big, and it's often like the video game industry, they need to think about every possibility that the player is going to do. So you're recording more dialogue than a movie would, right?
Yeah.
And then you're editing that, and then you got to do all the localization. So it's a lot of work. I mean, you think about big titles that had like 150,000 lines of dialogue. It's mind-boggling. It means you got a team of like an army of editors just editing lines. It's a lot of work, and I don't think people realize how much work there is in those projects. So.
Yeah, I certainly count myself as one who, up until this point, really did not realize the amount of work. I mean, that number of lines of dialogue exceeds what I would have thought by a factor of like maybe 10 or 20 or 30. It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
But let's get right into kind of the Clockaudio aspect of it. And I want to acknowledge you and thank you for being part of our 40 Influencers Under 40, sponsoring that initiative and celebrating the next generation of audio specialists and integrator specialists who are working in these integrated environments. With more and more baby boomers retiring by the day, I'm interested in what steps Clockaudio is taking to support the newer generation of field technicians specifically as skill sets evolve and change over time.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I joined in 2011, it was a very different approach on tech support. You would talk to people, they would all have their multimeter with them, they would know how to use them. And it was a very different type of call that we get now. The newer generation is a lot more the iPhone generation, where everything is wireless or everything is pre-connected. So I think the baby boomer generation had to do everything. They had to build everything. They had to solder connectors. They had to do stuff, which is a little bit less in the newer generation. So, and one thing that at Infocom, one thing that one of the editors that came by the booth had mentioned is that they really like the fact that instead of complaining about that change in generation, we're adapting our products so that It's easy to troubleshoot, and we save time and money to companies by using those products. So yeah, it's been really adapting our products and adapting also all the tutorials, the videos we do, the documentation. And what helps in our scenario is that I'm also doing tech support. So I'm seeing both sides. I'm the guy who's presenting products, but I'm also the guy who's doing tech support. So our development keeps in mind all the friction points that maybe some technicians have with such products or such products. The fact that we're on both sides, we're able to see it and adapt it and make a better product. So I think that's the advantage of having an agile company that can really quickly adapt and support technicians.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful. And there are two A words you used, agility and adaptation. And I think that really is the key to this conversation. Because as you say, not only are we seeing generational change as baby boomers retire and as we're seeing more and more millennials and Gen Zers come to dominate the workplace, but I mean, just in general, there seems to be this idea in society that we want our tools to mold to us, our situations to mold to us. We don't want to have to say, well, this is the way it used to be done, so now we have to mold our workflow, our comfort level to the past. We want things to mold to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's refreshing for companies like Clockaudio, real industry leaders like Clockaudio, to say that we're going to, look at our product line and say, how are we going to make it more installer friendly? How are we going to make it more technician friendly? How are we going to come to them rather than saying, you field technician, you need to come to us and adapt to us?
Yep. I think one example I think would be this here. So to the audio people in the that are listening to the podcast, I'm showing a poster that shows that asks the question, how many steps does it take to connect an RGB touch button from Clockaudio to a GPIO? Because we get a lot of that on tech support calls. So when they're not using an interface from Clockaudio, it's 23 steps that is required to wire that single button. So you think about that. So 23 steps. You're skinning the wire. You're skinning the inner wires. You're screwing this into the Phoenix block behind a DSP, and then you're programming every single pin one by one. Versus with our products, we really wanted it to be from the get-go, from the first generation of the CD100, we wanted it to be easy to connect with a pre-connected RG45, because most technicians know how to crimple RG45 wires, right? The connectors. So it makes it that with ours, you click it, it's 3 clicks, right? RG45, 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 bingo, you're done. You can go and continue. So that's just one way that we try to make it easier for people instead of going through the whole process of wiring everything. And then this adds a lot of human error potential, right? Because we all make mistakes. I make mistakes myself. So by having a way that you can't connect an RJ45 backwards, right? It's you click it and that's it. It just makes it easy to troubleshoot.
Yeah, no, it really is compelling. And you hear the idiomatic expression, the easy button. Everyone's looking for an easy button these days to try to be more efficient, speedier, eliminate some of that tendency for human error that you mentioned, Simon. And something like this, where you look at the 23 steps versus the simplicity of what Clockaudio is able to deliver, that's really compelling. And I think this is something that's kind of universally understandable to everyone in the field, integrators, technicians, et cetera. All of us are trying to be we're not cutting corners. We're just trying to make things efficient. We're trying to speed things along, get to the next project or unit or space. So we're not belaboring things. Don't make things 23 steps if they don't need to be 23 steps. Eliminate redundancy, eliminate waste, and at the same time have the benefit of eliminating or reducing human error.
That's it. It really helps, and it shows on calls. Another thing that we've added to the newer generation is test mode. So we found that a lot of people don't bring their multimeter with them. Nowadays, nobody has it with them. They're probably in their truck or at home. It used to be anybody had this in their bag. So how do you troubleshoot a button with somebody that doesn't have a multimeter. Well, that's one thing we added. We added a test mode shown here for I'm showing on screen a CDD100 interface, and with a pinhole with the paperclip, you push the pinhole for 5 seconds, and then your buttons all go into test mode. They all go red, and then you just walk around the room and you tap them 3 times. Red, green, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, blue. And by doing that simple thing, you've confirmed that your red, green, blue works, that the capacitance works, that the GPIO works, that everything hardware works. So it means that you could install this maybe a month before the rack shows up on site and do all your installation and certify it at the same time. Or at the last minute, you're rushing, you're installing, you got to deliver the thing next day. Well, this will give you a way to isolate everything out of your system and just work on that device without having the influence from something else. Because you don't know if it's a problem that's elsewhere in the line. Maybe the button is now programmed the right way in the module, or, you know, so it's a way to isolate this and go by elimination. It really helps. And it accelerated tech support so much by having that simple feature, because that was something that came up often.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. That test mode to me is a game changer. And thank you for taking some time to highlight it for us. As we move on to further in the interview, I want to talk a little bit more about tips for installers so they can save money, save time. We were just talking about efficiency and the virtues and the benefits of it. So what kind of tips would you give to the installer community, the technician community, who are looking to just save time and money, not just for their own team, but quite honestly for their client as well, because time is money up and down the chain, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I would say elimination test, swap test, elimination test is a good way to accelerate your troubleshooting. And that's one thing I noticed, that not every tech knows how to do that. But I think once they realize how much time they've saved by doing that, let me give you an example. Okay, let's say
Sure.
this is your whole project. Okay, let me just get this out of the way. This is your whole project. So you got hardware, you got software, hardware, and then that's all your points. Well, when you're doing elimination tests, right away you're removing, instead of troubleshooting 100% of the things in every direction, it's just shooting blindly in every direction and hoping you fix it. Right, which we've done. I'm sure we've all done that. Well, by doing the elimination test, you're able to ask yourself, okay, is it a hardware test, a software test? Oh, it's a hardware test this time. Okay, so all right, hardware test. Is it this? Oh, it's a control. Oops, wrong piece of paper. Maybe it's the DSP that's a problem. So now you're just troubleshooting this instead of the whole sheet. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's one thing that if you don't do that, then you end up wasting so much time. And the elimination tests means that you're going from an hour of tech support call to maybe 10 minutes, and we're getting to it really, really right away. So I think that the more people do swap tests and elimination tests, they will spend less time troubleshooting and more time installing. Anyways.
Yeah, it makes the problem much more approachable and much more digestible. As you say, when you look at that whole sheet of paper like you had, your mind is almost a swirl with, well, what if it's this? What if it's that? Is it hardware? Is it software? And it almost can become like paralyzing. You don't know what to do because there's so much you're looking at. If you can chunk it down and narrow in on exactly what the fault is, it makes the issue that much easier to remediate, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. And for us, that we can see the difference in calls when we do that versus not. I think now we do it all the time just because it's easier. Sometimes, I mean, we'll get technicians that already did a lot of homework, and then it's easy to just continue where they left off because they've done the exercise. But yeah, that really helps.
So what techniques would you say every tech should know or know better? What techniques would you share as an industry expert yourself?
Well, those 2 steps that we mentioned before, so elimination tests, and I think it's a good thing too, especially with Clockaudio product. I think it's a good idea to go and get the free Dante certifications that are offered by Audinate. They got some really good training. The certifications are online, and you learn a lot also on how to troubleshoot Dante. Mind you, Dante, I'd say maybe it's like 1 or 2% of my troubleshooting time, because Dante is so stable and it just works. And it's very rare that it's actually a Dante issue. I can count on one hand this year number of times, not even number of times it was actually a Dante issue. It's usually more programming, network, or or the network is too busy and you get latency and stuff like that. So
Yeah. So I'd like to know a little bit about Clockaudio USB solutions and how they differ from the rest of the industry community. As we started from the beginning, I mean, Clockaudio really has a sterling reputation, quite honestly, in the industry for its precision, its quality. But on the USB solution front specifically, what are your positive differentiators from the competition?
so we try to bring our experience in the integration market, to differentiate ourselves. Excuse me. English is my second language, so um, and we opted to do products that are integrator centric, so that that fit how our industry installs products in there. So one example is the CY2. So with the CY2, we opted to have a microphone that you can screw under your desk, so that you're eliminating all the wires, like the installation you would have in your boardroom. So the idea, especially during between 2020 to now, a lot of people are working remotely, but they really like the boardroom microphones they have in the boardroom. So how do you bring that quality of the boardroom back to your home? Well, that's why we made those products. So it's the same way as we made our Dante devices to help our integrators when they're installing in boardrooms. Here we made products that simplify the installation, with videos, with tutorials. We're doing a lot of that to help people get that same quality of audio as they that they expect from Clock. People don't realize, but we're also in the House of Congress, right? So the same mic element that I'm speaking into now that people would buy from Clock is actually the same electronics that's inside our microphones in the House of Congress. So one specialty that we have is doing very small batch custom. And when I was talking about agile, that's one example that I mean. We can do very small batch custom, and that's one big projects that we've done. Remember that kid that was making grimaces in the back? It was.
I do. I do, but count me impressed as someone who's passionate about following politics. That's the torture test. I mean, that's the highest standard. It has to be perfect, right?
And why is it that people go for clock audio in House of Congress and courtrooms and places like that? It just works, and it's transparent enough that you forget that the mic is there. You forget that they're speaking a mic. You know, um, some microphones add a lot of coloration or personality or to their to the voice that's speaking into it.
They make
Ours
themselves
tends to be
known. Yeah.
very transparent, and the focus is intelligibility. The difference between in banks, the difference between a B and an M when you're dealing with millions and billions in a negotiation, that can be an awkward mistake to do
Yeah.
on a negotiation call. So that's why our focus is on intelligibility first, not being flat response, not really for it to sound like to have intelligibility, in your face intelligibility with our mics. So we try to bring that same kind of thing, same kind of approach with that. In our solutions, we also made sure that we have code inside the Zoom app. So when you're muting your microphone with our touch buttons, right? Well, you get mute sync into Zoom. So that really simplifies things a lot. As well, a lot of the industry I've seen in other microphones, sometimes the USB mics are muted in the Windows mixer. So if you're a hacker and you want to gain access to somebody's conversation, well, you just hack the computer and you just unmute the mic, and then you can listen in the conversation of what's going on in the person's room. With our microphones, in this case, one example is the Cub 33, but it could be the CY2 as well. Well, the mics mute locally, meaning that if there's audio, if you mute there, the audio going back is just silence.
Mhm.
Right, so there's no way to hack it and to listen to it. And if your microphone suddenly changes from mute to unmute, and you can see the color change from red to blue, or the color you've programmed it to be, well, right away you'll know that there's a problem, and just unconnect your USB card and call your IT guy. You've been hacked. But yeah, we keep that in mind for corporate environments. Privacy is very important. Also, not getting your microphone stolen is important. So
That's important. Yeah.
as a Kensington lock. So like the red stapler in in Office Space, nobody's gonna steal that one because you can lock it to your desk. Versus other products would be screwed to your desk completely, right? So so that's the idea. That's the approach we took. Because to go back to my original point, when you have an interface on your table, you got a cable, USB cable, you got a mic cable, you got all that on your desk. It's very not feng shui at all. Right? So we're trying to have create. Let me give you an example of those kind of installs, right? So maybe you're using a slimline microphone, and you're integrating in your desk. It makes a really clean install, and all the wires are under the desk. It could be you're doing a big deployment. Maybe Facebook or Google is making a new campus, and they need 500 microphones. Well, this makes it very clean. My favorite personally is this one here, the presenter kit. The presenter kit has a knuckle joint head, so you can aim the rear of the capsule very easily towards your keyboard. Why would you do that, by the way? Well, you know, with a cardioid, let's say you're doing live and you're using dynamic cardioid mics. Well, normally you would want to aim them towards your floor monitors, right, to prevent feedback.
Right.
Well, what if you're a fan of mechanical keyboards and your friend hates you with a passion when you're on Discord and you're gaming, and they can hear every click because you like those clicky keyboards? Well, by just aiming your capsule towards your keyboard, you're rejecting a lot of audio. And I've done that in my own setup, and nobody's complaining anymore, because just you're creating almost 30 dB of distance between your voice and the noise of your keyboard. This is enough for Discord or any denoiser to pick it up and remove it. So anyways, that's just one way, one approach that we figured, and we try to bring back the gooseneck as a popular solution for streamers and YouTubers, because I think this is a better solution than having big microphone in front of your face, you know?
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. And I have to also give you credit for the Office Space red swing line stapler reference. I appreciate that. So you already kind of alluded to this. You did a great job of anticipating my next question. I wanted to ask you about some of the benefits of the condenser gooseneck versus other kind of microphones. Before we wrap up, do you have any other thoughts on that? Just kind of wrapping up the real benefits of the condenser gooseneck and some of these applications, as opposed to dynamics, as opposed to headsets, built-ins, other kinds of things like that. Anything you haven't already shared?
So like if we go quickly on the order of the good, what's the best versus what's the worst? Well, the microphone that's the closest will always be better, but that comes with problems. So the closest microphone is your headset. Okay. But if you're scratching your head, you're going to hear that because it's usually not shock mounted, right? There's also one thing. I always, when I have a headset, I suddenly have an idea. I stand up and I start walking, and my laptop follows behind because I forgot to unhook myself. Or maybe you're wearing gel and you got gel hair because you got like a, so headset is not perfect. Plus, if you're negotiating millions and billions in a bank, having a gamer headset kind of screws your style, cramps your style. Right? So, and of course you got wireless headset, but then you got battery management, which is often an issue, and some won't let it even charge while you're using them. So, the dynamic mics, I know there's a big trend with the big dynamic mics with the arms, but I mean, so they're good when you're right next to it and you're eating the mic, but when you're farther away, they don't perform as well, right? So, I mean, for a radio station, that works well, but if you're doing a video medium like now, this is super low profile. So versus having your big dynamic mic that you're hiding behind and you're doing like free publicity, right? Because you always have the brand of the mic and the brand of the arm.
Yeah,
So
no, I know what you mean. It's like a walking billboard.
that's it. So here it's very low profile. I can be at 12 or to 18 inch away from it and get a good quality. You know, you don't have to worry about that. Of course, it's more sensitive, but being more sensitive means you're going to pick up a lot more detail and richness of the person's voice. And of course, if you want to have the proximity effect, you just get closer to the mic. So I find this is less vulgar than having some big microphone blocking a third of your frame.
That's a good word for it. Yeah. That's a very good word to describe it, vulgar. But thank you so much. I really appreciate, Simon, you sharing so much knowledge with us here today. I appreciate the conversation and appreciate you being able to talk about and willing to talk about Clockaudio industry leadership and your thoughts on the microphone category specifically.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you thank you.
It's our pleasure. So happy to have been joined by Simon LeDuc, who is Product and Technology Manager with Clockaudio North America. My name is Dan Ferrisi, Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Emerald. Please keep your eyes on commercialintegrator.com in the days, weeks, and months ahead for more exciting thought leadership content exactly like this. And again, shout out to Clockaudio for supporting our 40 influencers under 40. Of course, our most beloved, most eagerly anticipated feature of the year. So thank you, Simon, and thank you, Clockaudio, for being part of the celebration, celebrating the next generation of AV talent.